Hey friends, I want to give you a quick update from Odessa. This morning, it looks like we were attacked by rockets. I think that they hit the airport. We heard the explosion, at least one of the explosions, but from what I can gather, it was 4 or 5 rockets that hit. We saw some tracer rounds going up, trying to take them down. People are kind of in a panic here. If you can see behind me, this is the line to the gas station, and there are lines all over the city right now. Hi friends, this is part 2 of how we fled from Ukraine when Russia attacked our city. If you didn't see part 1, go ahead and check it out on our channel so that you can get the story from right where it began when we woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning on February 24th. But we're going to start where we left off in the last video, which was basically the fact that it was still dark out. There were explosions that we had been hearing. Christina had seen probably one of the missiles fly by. You could see it out our living room window. But we were not comfortable leaving at that point, although originally we had thought that as soon as an attack happened that we would leave. But we were not comfortable leaving for a couple of reasons. One, it was dark out. We didn't know where these missiles were landing. We didn't know how many more were coming. And we just didn't know a lot of things. And so it seemed that it was a bit dangerous. And so we talked with the leadership of our organization. And of course, they really wanted us to leave. And that was still early in the morning while it was dark. I said, I just don't feel comfortable leaving right now because we don't know where these missiles are coming from. We don't know what's out there on the roads. We don't know if tanks are coming. There's just too many unknowns, and we feel that it would be wiser at this point to just shelter in place. So we made that decision early in the morning after we started hearing those explosions for the time being, to shelter in place and kind of see how this was going to play out, wait for daylight and see what would happen.
And to be honest with you, we did have a plan in place of when we would flee, when the trigger points, what are the trigger points that would make us leave. But the problem was we did not have a plan that the missiles would be fired on Odessa just without any kind of warning. We thought that it would just be kind of a slow spreading sort of a conflict or slow spreading war from the east coming to Odessa, and so we were expecting that once.
Right. I think that did really surprise us because we were thinking about what happened in 2014, right?
Yes.
Which was, Russia coming into eastern Ukraine, coming into Crimea, and then coming up from Crimea, possibly. And so that's kind of what we thought. Well, if they started, they're going to start in the east. But what happened was on the 24th, as we began to look at the news, we realized that Kyiv
every
was
major
hit.
city.
Ivano-Frankivsk in the west was hit. I mean, it was cities all over Ukraine. And we looked at that map and it was like, bam, 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 here's all these spots. It's like, where do you go? Like when every major city is being hit, where do you go?
It basically immediately took out our first plan A of escape, because that would make a long trip very dangerous, because our plan was to escape to western Ukraine, which meant that we needed to go north and then west. And actually, the cities on the way were hit.
Yeah, I think Uman was hit and somebody was killed there in Uman, which was a city that we'd have to go through, Vinnytsia. And so we looked at that right away and we thought, this is to make a 1,000-kilometer trip, or what is it, like 600-mile trip while these missiles are falling, is not something that we want to do at this point.
And we live in Odessa near the border of Moldova. It takes about 40 minutes for us on a good day, to drive to that border. The problem is that right there, sandwiched between Moldova and Ukraine, is Transnistria. And that's another one of those, I would say, cancerous formations that Russia has put in Moldova. It's like the island of the Soviet Union that still remains there. And Russia still has quite a few military personnel as well as military capacity, right?
Well, yeah. In fact, I'm pretty sure what we realized later was it looked like some of the missiles that came into Odessa region actually came from that breakaway area of Moldova, Transnistria, which is one of the reasons why we were a little bit worried about kind of going a little bit that direction going into Moldova. But still, at that point, we realized that if we are going to leave, we need to probably get to the closest border, which would be the border of southern Moldova. And but we still weren't sure if we were going to leave. So I think at that point we probably talked with our teammate Holly, who lives just like a 15-minute walk from us or so.
And she already came to our house, probably by the time it was 10 o'clock in the morning with her things, because she packed. Because as soon as the rockets hit, I called her and we woke her up. And so she was packing that whole time. And she came to our place at about
Well, I think
10.
she was probably already packed before that, wasn't she?
And so then we had a chance to sit down, have something to eat. Now, really it's a strange thing because you feel like you need to eat, but you don't feel hungry. And
Well, yeah, I would say one thing is, I do remember that morning. Well, actually, I think before we ate, I remember I wanted just to walk outside and just kind of check on things, what's going on outside. And this was maybe 10 o'clock, somewhere around there. And so I just went outside, and it was a very strange type of thing because in some senses things were very normal. Like there was the lady sweeping the street, there were people selling apples and fruit and things on the street, but in another way you could sense that things were really off. And so
because we have a gas station near our
Yeah.
house, and the line of cars going to the gas station was so long. We've never ever seen a line like that.
yeah, I realized I'm not going to be able to get fuel right now. I had been keeping my tank at least half full for probably 2 weeks or so. And the night before, I thought, well, I should probably put some fuel in, but I was a little too tired. I didn't do it. But I still had like 2/3 of a tank, thankfully, enough to get me a couple 100 miles in the car. But I realized, it's just amazing. Things change so fast. Because literally, Wednesday, the day before, I went to the dentist. I had 2 crowns put in. And I remember joking with the dentist, like, oh, well, at least I get this done before the war starts. And we were like, yeah, please, everything's going to be fine. Next day, the war starts. So I went out, and actually I could kind of hear some of this booming in the distance, even when I was walking around outside. And the line to the gas station, just our gas station, was probably 30, 40 cars long. Everyone wanted to get fuel. And so I walked back, and I think shortly after I came home, we heard another very loud explosion, another rocket hit. I think closer to our end of town, actually, that one was.
It did, and in fact, it shook things inside of our house, and it was pretty shocking, because still at that time we were not sure what was happening. And so thankfully we had some friends there from Latvia, and they packed themselves and they went to that border crossing that we were planning to go to, and they called us and they said, okay, you guys should come. There's a line, but you should go. And so I needed to pack a few more things. Our clothes were mainly packed, and so I just needed to pack some toiletries and maybe computer and whatever else. And I knew that I needed to do that, and I knew that it was urgent, but I just kept walking from room to room, just kind of in a daze, and I just could not collect myself.
I know. What I was going to say was that, so after I came back, I was like, hey guys, we just, because everyone was just kind of like Christina said, we didn't know what to do with ourselves. You have this feeling of
paralyzed.
A little bit paralyzed, but I don't know. I didn't necessarily feel paralyzed, but I guess I would just say it was kind of a fight or flight feeling, or not kind of. It was a fight or flight feeling, but yet you didn't know what to do with yourself. It was hard to focus. That's probably the word for it. It was hard to focus because there was and I was personally getting so many phone calls.
And you were on the phone basically the whole time ever
calling.
since.
I remember scrolling through all my phone calls the next day or something. It like took me like a minute to scroll through all my phone calls. So constantly talking to people from the church. Eventually, I said, like, you guys, we need to just sit down and have a meal. Just let's put it all aside. Let's clear our minds. Let's just sit down and have a normal meal. And
That was hard to do.
it was hard to do, but I think it was important at that time just for our sanity. Because everyone is worried, everyone is scared, nobody knows exactly what to do. And it's like you just need to sit down and say, and I believe that last missile hit
When we were sitting down.
either right before or right as we sat down for that
We sat
meal.
down.
And so we were all sitting there and boom, this other missile hits and we kind of look at each other. It's like, okay,
Yeah,
I
where did you
think
go?
I think that we need to leave. And I think that after we ate, within an hour or so, we probably made that decision that we are going to leave today.
So we packed up our things, and of course we had to call my parents. And at that point, it was unclear how people could evacuate, whether they could just go without documents, whether they could go with pets. I mean, it was just, it was kind of mayhem. And so we decided that we would not take our cat because, what would happen if we got to the border and he's undocumented, he doesn't have any chip, he's just a cat. And so we talked to my parents and they decided to stay, and they said, okay, we'll just leave him at home. We'll keep an eye on him. And so we just packed up, and by the time it was 4:00, we were
It took us quite a bit longer to pack up than.
So the last bomb hit at about 11:45 in the morning. I remember looking at the clock. And so that was from then on it was quiet, and so we thought, okay, you know what, that's probably our sign that we should just.
And also
things
we
ready.
wanted to leave while it was still daylight hours too. And my problem was I was still talking on the phone to a lot of people. I had a whole list of people that wanted to be evacuated that had contacted me. So I was trying to make sure that list was ready to go, and I wanted to print that list out to leave with your parents because it had all the contact numbers on it and everything. So
And the vehicle was ready for them, and the driver was there, and
So there's a lot of details that we're just trying to finalize, and that kind of slowed me down a little bit. So I actually just, because I wasn't completely packed, because I had just come back from my trip to Don Boss a couple of days before, so I just went in my closet, threw things into my backpack, and didn't. So I ended up with just a bunch of T-shirts and no sweaters. In fact, this is a gift for refugees, because we're refugees.
this is also
a gift. Yeah, we've been treated very well since we've been here.
Yeah.
So we packed up the car, and about 4:00, I think we're ready to head out. Christina, your parents came by.
Yeah, when we said goodbye, it was hard to say goodbye because you knew that they were staying behind, and you didn't know if that was a safe choice.
Пошли, Господь, по милости Твоей, сохранность, чтобы все хватило и горючего, и здоровья, и безопасность была в дороге. Боже, открой этот путь, все берем в Твои святые руки. Также благослови нашу страну.
But we just felt like, okay, in order that our mission felt good, we need to get out of country. And so we started heading, and we live fairly close to the outskirts of town. And so once we got onto the main road that goes outside of town, that's when we realized that we were not the only ones going that direction. And that's it's kind of like a ring road that bypasses the city on the outside, and there was quite a bit of traffic.
And like Christina said, usually it's about a 40-minute drive, about 40 miles or something to the border. And so it took us maybe an hour and a half to get out of town, 2 hours maybe.
There were still gas stations that did not have huge lines. Some of the gas stations didn't have any gas. But
I mean, there were gas stations that had any lines, they didn't have any gas either. I think the ones that had lines had gas.
Yeah, but the lines were not quite as crazy because this was on the outskirts of town. So we just thought, okay, maybe we can just get a little closer to the border and then see if we can find a gas station.
So as we're going, of course, there's military vehicles going past us. You see some military helicopters, and it's a little worrisome because it was like we didn't know.
You don't know
You don't know
who's
who they are.
military. Yeah.
Yeah, is this Ukraine? Is this Russian? You know,
From what we could tell, it was Ukraine.
Yeah.
You know, it was
I
Ukrainian
think with the
military.
military vehicles, we could pretty much tell they're Ukrainian. But when you see an airplane at a
Or
distance,
helicopter. We saw a helicopter. Yes.
You don't always can't tell from that distance.
Yeah.
But there were quite a few military vehicles that went past us as we were in traffic trying to get out of the city. They were going past us, going around us. So we got out of the city, and actually for a while the road was fairly open. And then before we came to kind of the border area, there was a gas station, and so that was about 2 hours in, I suppose. And I pulled over there, and they were limiting the fuel, but they allowed us to get 20 liters.
Which
And
is 5 gallons.
5 gallons,
roughly.
so I figured I was getting down to close to half a tank, and I figured I'm just gonna get 5 gallons just for my own sanity, because I don't know how long I'm gonna be in this car. I don't know how long we're just gonna have to be sitting here, and it's cold outside. It's freezing, so it's a little bit difficult not to just leave the engine off all the time because it's gonna get cold in the car.
And as I said earlier, our friends from Latvia, they already went through the border. So they left 2 hours before we did. And they said, okay, we made it through the border, and they were
I
in the
got through
car.
pretty quickly. Yeah.
And so we thought, okay, it'll be some hours, I don't know, 5 hours or so.
6, 7 maybe.
Yeah. Well, the last 5 kilometers were the slowest 5 kilometers. I think we would have walked.
Yeah, we got in that line.
Much faster.
I think basically, yeah, it's probably 6, maybe 7 kilometers maximum line, which is like 4 miles to the border of cars, and it was really crazy because sometimes there were double lanes. Sometimes people were driving in the opposite lane, and it was really unclear what to do and how to go.
And the closer we got to the border, the 2-lane road turned into a 4-lane road of cars trying to get across the border. The line of cars is long, and as you can see, even the oncoming traffic is not in its own lane because our lane is split in two. It was pretty insane.
So by the time we hit the end of the line, that was like maybe 8 p.m. Around 8 p.m. Yeah, 7:30, 8 p.m. And it just went slow, and it kept getting slower. And we were in there all night. And there were times at night where I'd just fall asleep. I'd sleep for 10, 15 minutes, and then I'd hear somebody honk. And they're moving. And then we'd move about 100 yards. Then we'd sleep for another 10, 15 minutes, and then move another 50 yards. It was so slow. So we've been on the road for almost 15 hours, and we are not moving. And I will show you the traffic. The traffic behind me like that goes for miles and miles and miles, as does, actually we are only about 2.5 kilometers, so that's less than 2 miles from the border crossing. We're actually officially on Moldovan ground right now, but we have not gone through the checkpoint yet. So this is how we've been going all night, and the sun just came up a couple minutes ago. Or actually, I don't see the sun yet, but it's light. The sky is light, so it's kind of nice to have the night behind us, and hopefully in a couple hours we'll make it onto the other side in Moldova. But thankfully the kids never really complained too much. Thankfully we got to use the bathroom at the gas station before we got in line.
And thankfully we didn't have much water with us or food, so we kind of didn't even need to.
We tried not to drink
bathroom.
anything because we knew we were going to be there for many, many, many hours.
And our Romanian teammates, they came to the border on our Moldovan teammates came to the border on Moldovan side, and they waited for us with sandwiches. They waited that evening. Well, little did they know that they would have to wait till about 4 o'clock p.m. the following
Well, no,
day.
2
o'clock the following day.
So here's the situation. People are walking across the border. We've been in this traffic jam for almost 20 hours now. Where I can see the border now. It's just down this way, but we're not moving. People are going by. They're walking. They're walking miles to get here. Women and children, and hopefully we will make it. I hope soon.
That's how long it took us, and only thanks to just an accidental. Well, I was sitting behind the wheel. Caleb stepped out just to walk around a little bit, and I asked this Moldovan guard. I said, "Well, here we're Americans. We have children. Can we go?" He said, "Oh yeah, why are you sitting here?" He said, "Just go around, go right over there." And so okay.
That was after we'd already sat there for 20 hours.
And so we just, if we knew that they were just, letting us go through so fast, we would have gone already. But I guess we just needed that exercise of patience and trust to sit in that line and see the people walk through, see the wives and mothers saying goodbye to their husbands and their sons, and that was really heartbreaking.
Oh, he's going with his wife. He's saying goodbye to his mother-in-law and to his kids. Yeah, I think that was because Ukraine made a decision to not allow men 18 through 60 to leave the country because they 60. Could through 60, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that came into effect that day, that same day.
So there were many husbands and fathers that were with their family, and they were not allowed to leave the country. And so, like right in front of our eyes, right before us, we saw these husbands kissing their wives and their children, and some of them were pleading with the guards to let the husbands out, and they wouldn't let them out, and that was pretty touching to see, actually. And then in addition to that, we just saw a lot of people walking, and people that would walk for miles with
just their backpacks, their suitcases,
or like a rolling carry-on or something like that. Some of them walked 3-4 miles
people
across
with
the border.
Pets. And later we found out that you can bring a pet with no documents, and even you can bring children with no documents. If you're unable to get documents, you can just basically come yourself with no documents.
And what happened was we had a group from our church that was being driven in the van, and they actually started catching up with us. They left
10 o'clock that morning, and they were just...
They left 10 o'clock the following morning.
The following morning,
Yeah.
yes. Mm-hmm.
And they started catching up with us because they were walking, and it actually turned out to be much faster to walk across, because you could just kind of go straight past all the traffic and everything.
So we will share the rest of the story in the next edition, but we just want to thank you that you stayed with us in prayer, and you were supporting us with kind words, and we are so blessed. We're so blessed having you, having friends here in Moldova, seeing how Moldova has met all the refugees that came through. And we just want to thank our Lord for allowing us to experience this. This is really amazing.
Definitely, there's been some really big blessings into it in this, and we'll share those blessings with you more in the next video. But thank you so much for your love and prayers.